So we have some wonderful German characters and little fun people, mostly from the Paul Johnson collection in this upcoming auction, and I wanted to share a couple with you because I think that nothing could make anyone happier than walking into their home every night after a hard day work and you're tired and you walk in and there you have a little arrangement right in your front foyer on a table under a dome of some happy little Googlies. And we're going to come to those in a minute because in the meantime, we're going to show you a couple of the art character dolls that also came out the same time as the Googlies. And we have here a very, very wonderful little pouty-faced girl. And let me turn it around so I want you to see the way she's marked and her model number. So this is the model number 212 by the Kessner firm. You recognize their inimitable plaster pate, which always helps identify them. And then we bring her around and you can show her and see her in her original factory costume. She's a really, really rare little doll, extremely fine doll. And next to her is her partner. And I'm going to turn it around so again you can see the mark on her. We'll take her little bonnet off. Look at that gorgeous mohair wig she has. And her model number is the very rare 129 model number. And look at her happy face. I think she could greet you every day when you walk into your house. Two very rare of the German art characters. And let me just move these off of here for a moment. And then we have, these are from the Margaret Lumia collection, we have two of the wonderful presentations that the German firms came up with at the time to try to make the dolls a little more, I really don't know what their purpose was. They were interchangeable heads. I guess the idea was if the parents would buy them because the child would be loving the body and the costumes and all that the doll would have. And if perchance the head would break, well, there's another ready one, ready to put on. I don't really quite get it, and I don't think they were terribly successful because they're so extremely rare to find that I think not too many were made. The one I'm holding up right now is an extremely rare example. Number one, rare for the size, and number two, rare for the various model numbers. This particular face, I mean, this is a stunning doll in itself. And sometimes people say to me, well, what will I do with that? How am I going to display it? And what I'm saying is, look at the doll. It's gorgeous. In her original chemise, everything about this doll is so absolutely perfect. You turn it around, you can see her little cap, and I'll show you the model number because we've been sharing that. And this is the model number 187. Very, very rare model to find. If you were offered this doll just simply as a doll, as a character, you would jump at it. Here, you have three other choices to go with it. Two of the others with painted eye, and one, the classic sleep-eyed child doll. So very, very rare to find. Here, in a smaller size, is the same concept. Sweet little boy in his original little knit costume with painted eyes, and then two partners with painted eye, and another one with the glass eyes. And each one of them have their original mohair wigs, and so they're very, very wonderful to find. So many of the dolls from the Paul Johnson collection were happy dolls. There's no other way to describe it. They're googlies, or they're smiling, or they're mischievous, and many of them were featured in an early book in the early 1980s, and he kept them, and they made him happy his whole life, and he's happy to pass them on to share with you. Now, the googly concept, what about it? It all began with Kewpie. Kewpie was the originator. Now, some people say googlies began with the Palmer Cox brownies in the 1892 period, and that is true. They did have those big eyes, but Rose O'Neill, she really did it with the Kewpie. She did her stories in Ladies' Home Journal. People grasped onto that concept of the happiness of this figure, this person, this child, male or female, who knew? It was just a happy person. And the Kewpie became such a phenomenon that I would tell you, you're a doll collector, walk down the street and ask your neighbor, do you know what a Kewpie is? The chances are, if they don't know what it is, they've heard the name. This is now some 100 years later that the Kewpie was so phenomenal that everyone knows what it remained. And here's there are some Kewpies from the Paul Johnson collection that are featured in the auction, and I'm showing 3 of them here. This is one little lot, the Huggers, and the little blunderboo kid, the little baby that lays on his tummy, and the Kewpie seated with the kitten in his lap. And there are several other rare examples. I'm going to show you many of the pieces. Now I have this wonderful piece. This is known as September Morn, and it was designed by one of our favorite American female illustrators of the early 20th century, Grace Drayton. And it was depicting a little girl, supposedly you can see the water at the bottom, and she was about to walk into a cold pond on a September morn, and she's shivering. It became a very, very famous feature, and look at her little googly eyes. Grace Drayton, September Morn. I don't even know where to start. We're going to just span across these for a minute to show you the wide variety of dolls that were produced that fall in the category of googly. So let's just do this little group right here because they're on a dome, and I think it's such a cute little arrangement. These are not really googlies per se, but they're kind of that genre, and they are, I don't know, I thought it was a dog, but someone else here said it was a wolf. But at any rate, we have the 2 animal people, and they are posed holding their basket of fish where they've just gone fishing for the day. Bisque heads, composition body, rare little animal people. They're so happy and fun to look at. And then we'll just start from this end and we'll go right down. Hertel and Schwab produced what they marketed as their Jubilee Googlies in about the 1860 period, and they were celebrating, I believe it was a centennial of their company, so Googlies became known as the Jubilee, the 100-year. And this is a wonderful petite example in its original factory costume, a very, very beautiful one. Now it also was, they did at the same time, they did one with sculpted hair. And this is kind of, as anyone who looks at it would know that it's inspired by the famous Campbell Kids, also designed by Grace Drayton, with a little typical bobbed hair and side-parted hair, bob fashion, orange, and wonderful little mischievous expression. They were made in so many different ways. This one having glass eyes, but they also came with painted eyes, and she's holding her own little Campbell Kid, googly, in her hands, all bisque. This fellow, I don't even know what to make of him. He is very strange. I've only seen him one other time, so he's quite rare with his big googly eyes, but what's particularly rare about him is this fringe of hair around the crown of his head. I don't know if you'd call that a latter-day, what do you call it, a comb-over? Or what it is, but he has these big bulging eyes and this wonderful smile, and you can see the top of his head. Very, very unique model of a googly. And on that same line, in the same mischievous category, is little Max from the Max and Moritz character series, based upon the original children's books by Wilfred Bush in the mid-1800s, and then later popularized again in America with the Katzenjammer Kids. And Max was, of course, a little devil, and very stylized hair and googly eyes, and he's a wonderful example, those of you who collect from that series. These are 2 great dolls to have. The Einko Googly. The Einko Googly was produced as a special commission and watch. I'm going to do something. What is happening? Are her eyes moving? Because I am turning a lever back and forth, which is at the back of her head. This is a very desirable doll, and I have never seen it in this tiny size before. Very, very rare. All original factory costume. Perhaps the most beloved of all of the Googlies, because it was really superbly inspired by the Kewpie. Kestner was making the socket head version of the Kewpie doll under commission, and they were paying royalties to Borgfeldt, to George Borgfeldt, the distributor from America, and to Rose O'Neill. And I kind of have this feeling, although there's no documents to prove it, But I have this feeling that they decided, well, why can't we make our own Googly doll that sort of kind of maybe looks like a Cupie, and people will buy that instead. And that's what they did. They continued to buy the Cupie as well, but this little Googly became one of the most popular of all of the Googlies made, and is so desirable. Here he is, all original, in this wonderful sailor suit, original mohair wig, and a very, very rare size to find, the 221 Kestner Googly. Little features can make a difference. Number one, finding something in its original box is really quite nice. But look at the little doll, the little Googly here. And where is that Googly jointed? It's jointed elbows, shoulders, knees, and hips. So four-way jointing, which is very, very rare. And of course, the swivel neck, which is very rare to find. The Googlies all bisque will usually be jointed only at shoulders and hips. So to find the jointing at the elbows and knees is very desirable. And this little guy comes in its Kestner labeled Biscuit Babies box with original wig. This is the model number 322 by Heubach-Koppelsdorf, not Gebrüder Heubach, but Heubach-Koppelsdorf, with its original body, original costume, and an extremely rare model of the Googlies to find. Very, very seldom. I think we've only had this model maybe 3 or 4 times in 40 years. So evidently not too popular at the time, although I don't understand why, because it's really an extraordinary face. And so great to find in this tiny size and all original. And while we're up on here, can we just show 2 others that are up here? This one by Gebrüder Heubach, sweet little doll. And then another wonderful girl with really just the chubbiest face you've ever seen. And big, I mean, her smile just pushes those cheeks out and really just emphasizes that whoever did that model really was on top of things. The little girl in the dome over here is by Gebrüder Heubach. And she is notable because she has this model top knot and the intaglio blue eyes. Very wonderful. And then just to complete it, because in a way they're Googlies and sort of not Googlies, but they really fall in this category. And this was the beloved Just Me doll, which morphed into, of course, the first of the Ginny models, and very distinctive for their bent right arm, modeled bent right arm, and done in several techniques. They were done in the fired-on bisque, which the larger doll is, very, very rare size, this larger one, all original factory costume, and they were done with what we refer to as painted bisque. That is, it was never actually fired after the painting was put on it, but in superb original condition also, original costume and shoes. And you can see in the smaller one really the genesis of the about to be presented Ginny doll from Jenny Graves of Massachusetts. So we move from really rare characters into dolls that were designed by American artists, such as the Googly and the September Morn and the Campbell Kid, and we move from that into dolls that were still being made in Germany, but eventually began to be presented in American companies as American dolls, as the Ginny. Part of the whole spectrum of American history. I wanted to tell you one other thing. When I was working on the first Madame Alexander collection, and I was talking about the cloth dolls she made called Little Shaver, Elsie Shaver, who designed those dolls, had gone to New York as a young girl, and her sister inspired her. He said, let's make a living by making cloth dolls, because look what Rose O'Neill did. She designed that Cupie, and she made a fortune with her doll, so we can do the same. So all things kind of come full circle in our doll collecting world. I urge everyone not to always try to categorize the dolls they collect or the history that they learn. Try to see things in a bigger scope of history. It makes things so much more interesting. I hope to see you in Naples. I'd love you to be able to see. There's going to be close to 1,000 dolls on exhibit for 2 days, and many of them you'll probably never see again, and it's just a rollicking good time. So please join us. Thank you.